Welcome to Feels Out Loud. This is Becky McNattin and Tara Martini from Becoming Together Therapy and Wellness. We are so glad to have you joining us today as we live and share stories of mental health. Today we want to discuss the concept of Feels Out Loud. It's the very name of our program, and as we start the dialogue on this weekly radio show, Tara and I wanted to begin with highlighting why we are interested in Feels Out Loud. I've been a social worker since the early 2000s, and I've worked in mental health care for most of my career. Something I have always been struck by is the challenges of sharing emotions and the physical and psychological impact of people not being able to show up for other people. But I've been really thinking lately in the work that I've been doing, beyond improved relationships and deeper connection, why should we care? So Tara, I did a brief internet search recently on health issues as a result of not expressing an emotion. And what does the internet say about feeling out loud? And is there, what's the life expectancy or changes in us physically in not sharing emotion? And I saw some really kind of unbelievable things. One being the National Institute of Health had a link to an article that highlighted how emotional suppression can impact mortality. And I've just thought, wanted to talk about what I've noticed as a therapist, I'm sure you have too, is what we really learn and how we learn to avoid emotion. Say more on that.
Absolutely. Well, and one of those is, if you think about it, that universal concept of if we hold our emotions in, well, it has nowhere to go, right? So it's building up within us, in our bodies and our minds and our hearts. And if there is nowhere to go for it after time, what is that physical and mental impact of it? And it's just something a lot of people don't think about. As far as the, feeling stuck, why do we avoid them a lot of times? I mean, think about it. If you're sharing your emotions, you have to surrender to that idea of being vulnerable.
Right. And
that is scary.
Yeah, how we avoid sharing emotion because we worry about getting hurt.
Absolutely. When, though, if you think about it, if we don't share our emotions, in the end, more than likely we're going to get hurt.
Yeah.
Because we're not being heard, we're not communicating our needs. So therefore, we're not setting ourselves up for success. We're setting ourselves up for failure. But it's such a hard thing to ask of people.
Yeah, well, and as you're talking, it's making me think about how we use phrases like get a grip or suck it up to other people, that when we wonder about sharing, and as you said, vulnerability, it kind of highlights to us, maybe I can't share because that's what gets said to me. That's the response back from people. Absolutely.
And on top of that, if I share, more than likely the response will be, and we hear this all the time, calm down. Okay, I'm not angry, I'm not upset, I'm just expressing how I'm feeling. But it is that stigma still exists, sadly, of, well, if I share it, am I being dramatic? When in the end, it benefits both people. And I think a huge piece of also why it's hard to express it is so many people don't know how to translate how I'm feeling into words. So it's, my body feels this way, I'm experiencing something.
And we don't have the language for it.
Yes, but I don't know how to put it into words. And for some of us, it's very easy to do that. The communicators, the feelers, we are both big feelers and communicators. Then you, though, assume, well, everybody's like that, so why aren't you sharing your feelings? But not everybody is like that.
Right.
And it's scary to go, well, I'm not normally like that. Well, how do I get there?
Right. Well, and on top of that, we have this kind of societal thought of feelings as weakness.
Absolutely.
And somehow emotional sharing or expression is equated with not being strong. And so the thought of strength is like keeping it to myself.
Yep. Your thought of is unstable, right? If you're expressing all these things that you're experiencing.
Well, right now, we are going to take a brief commercial break. Thank you for listening. And when we return, we will dive even deeper into Feels Out Loud. See you soon.
In a world full of strangers, you don't know who's right. All you see is danger, trying to find what you lost.
Welcome back, everyone, to Feels Out Loud. I am Becky McNattin along with Tara Martini. Today we are talking about the concept of feels out loud. And I want to jump right into our topic that we've been discussing. We've been talking about what it means to actually feel out loud. And we've been thinking through in the last segment what the impact is to us in maybe not feeling out loud.
Absolutely.
And sharing who we are. So before you were a therapist, Tara, you were a teacher. You have lots of your own life experience, too. What do you see as the benefit of expression?
Well, one, and I said this earlier, I think from my experience as a teacher and school counselor and therapist, if I've learned anything, is that people struggle so much with expression. And so looking at and sharing with people the benefit of expression, people may have a hard time saying, well, who cares if I don't share? Mm-hmm. But there's so many benefits. One, like I stated earlier, we aren't keeping it captive in our bodies because there is an emotional and mental and physical impact if we don't let it out. Right? Also, if you think about it, there are so many benefits to sharing. And one of the biggest ones, and there's so many kind of like sub advantages to it after, is we're taking the steps to creating a life that we desire. Okay, well, what does that mean? That's a really good point.
Yeah.
But it's like, hey, by expressing, I am stating my needs. By expressing, I am stating my wants. And all those things, although it's scary, every time you do that, it's closer to getting what you want. And many times, if we don't do that and we don't express, we see the people around us and we're like, well, they're making me unhappy. But if you don't express your needs and your wants and your desires, how are they supposed to know to help you? Mm-hmm. And so it's that piece of, oh my goodness, your world opens up so much if you just are willing to express yourself. But much easier said than done.
Well, yeah, and in therapy, we see as clinicians, we see this impact of that physical impact when we first are meeting with people. And part of what you're highlighting, I think, is sometimes when we say back to people, have you tried sharing that? Mm-hmm. The answer is, one, I know.
Right. Absolutely not.
Or I don't know how. Mm-hmm. Or asking questions like, well, how would I do that? That's why I'm here to see you.
Yeah.
And maybe even being afraid of what the outcome would be in a relationship if somebody were to share what they need, because what if I don't get back what I needed?
Absolutely. And if I'm willing to be vulnerable and it's not received well by the other person, then what? Mm-hmm. Right? And it's that then what question. I share and express myself, well, then what? I share and express myself and it's not received well, then what?
Yeah.
And it's working through that piece. And
it kind of makes me think about what then does a relationship require in order for us to be able to feel like we can. And I think you're highlighting this concept of trust that, what do I do in order to even first share what's going on for me? But then what do I do after the fact? I think you're maybe referencing depending on if I don't get what I needed.
Absolutely. And it is that piece of how do I feel safe enough to be myself, to express myself. And that is not a one-sided piece, whether it's a friendship or a relationship or a whole family. You have to feel safe enough. Well, how do I do that? Well, one, you have to be willing to be vulnerable, right? Which is scary. But if you're not willing to be vulnerable, there's no work that's ever going to come out of it that will get the end result that you want. Also, and you have said this so much in exchange of like discussing our work situation, is we need to sit in our humanness. Why is that a bad thing? Just sit in it.
Well said.
Right? Mm-hmm. And how am I feeling? What does this look like? What's the impact on my world? But then also, and it kind of comes to vulnerability, is that idea of surrendering and going, I don't have all the answers, which, holy buckets, we're both parents. To acknowledge I don't have the answers, well, I thought we were supposed to know all because we are mothers, right? Mm-hmm. And as adults, we want to be able to, especially as therapists, right? Mm-hmm. How often are we looked at to give the answer, to make things better. When our work as therapists actually isn't giving answers, it's guiding them along the way to help the client discover these things. But then also going back to relationships, we both have to be willing to welcome growth. No relationship or friendship is perfect. But we both have to look at, it might get messy sometimes, but like we need to look at it from a growth standpoint. Not what's done is done, but what can we do to better ourselves?
Kind of like we're practicing becoming ourselves.
Absolutely.
With one another. Yep. And the more that we do that and the more we trust, the relationship will get through whatever that messiness is, with the trust that the person or people in our world will share what's going on for them too, that the relationship will sustain. We nurture that.
Absolutely.
Well, something that even prompted us to start this show was the wondering out loud on what would be different in our world if people showed up for each other in ways that kind of in agreeing to practice the messiness.
Absolutely.
That as therapists, we sit every day with painful life moments for people. And kind of wondering what would be different in our world around us if there was a shared language on what it meant to struggle and have human moments. You talk about being in the humanness, and then maybe B, if people felt safer in sharing their humanity with other people. It's kind of interesting to think about, but part of what motivated the show was you and I saying, well, maybe we can help with that.
Yes.
Maybe we can go out and as therapists who are in mostly a one-on-one setting with people, if we can go out and share what that experience is in psychoeducation, or even just in talking about emotions themselves, like what are they? Where do we feel them? How do we feel them? What's the impact relationally if we do feel them and then say things out loud to each other? What if we had courage to just like practice that messy relational stuff with each other? What would change in the world around us? And I feel like it would be, I don't know, what do you think about that? I feel like it would be different than what we know for sure.
I think it would be so beautiful. And I think it would be messy, but it would be beautiful. And I think for me and I always said this as a teacher, and I say it now as a therapist, is that, oh my goodness, so much of the world leads with judgment and indifference. Imagine if we led with curiosity and compassion.
Say that again.
So think about how our world, so many people lead with judgment and indifference.
Yeah.
I'm judging that human for whatever it is, or I'm indifferent. I just don't care.
Mm-hmm. Kind of a general apathy.
Apathy. But what if instead, no matter what the issue, whether it was global or within our country or within a personal relationship, so no matter how small or how big, what if we led with curiosity and compassion? Then there's no judgment. Tell me more about what you're feeling. Tell me more, what can I do? How can I show up for you? Those are questions you're leading with curiosity. And then that compassion of you are making the person feel safe no matter what their response is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we're really listening then to the feels out loud.
Absolutely.
Because somebody is then saying them, they're verbalizing it, and rather than leading with that judgment or the personalization that leads to judgment, we're saying, I'm going to ask another question, or I'm going to say a simple statement of tell me more. 3 words that really change, as you and I know, they change the entire trajectory of a conversation when we just say, tell me more.
Yep. And it goes from a potential disagreement to a conversation. 2 very different things, but such a huge difference, right? And it may not seem like a big difference, but it really is. And that is the whole piece. If you lead with compassion and curiosity, you are showing the person then that they are safe no matter what they have to say and no matter what they're feeling. There is nothing, and I, say this to my daughter, there's nothing you could tell me that would make me love you less. It's the same piece, and that love can be between friendship or family or whatever it is. It's that idea of come as you are and be vulnerable, and it will be received by me with love.
Well, and part of what you're saying that resonates with me so much right now is this idea of we are all a walking story.
Absolutely.
All the time. And you're saying curiosity and compassion for the feels that haven't even been said out loud. And that may not even be said out loud, but are clearly there because we are a living story, and that whether we know it or not, we have an ability to kind of lean into it's there. And the more that we do that in practice with the people who we may never even hear what the story is.
Oh, for sure.
We have a better ability to do it with and for the people that will share with us. That we can say, you are a living embodiment of human experiences. You had, even just in your day so far, we have had all sorts of experiences that I may or may not hear to anybody that we run across. But the more that we practice, I'm not going to personalize whatever that experience is. I'm just going to be curious about the thing.
Absolutely.
We kind of live a different reality ourselves in being approachable for the people who might want to verbalize something to us.
Absolutely. And it's that piece of, like you just said, it doesn't have to be a relative or significant other. It can be a stranger. For me, it was so transformative, and I don't know the exact day or year this happened, but the minute I started, my old way of looking at things was, oh, that barista is super crabby. Well, now I'm getting crabby, and I'm going to be even worse to that person because you just started my day on a bad note.
Yeah.
And the minute I started to look at it from that leading with compassion and curiosity, wow, I wonder what is making that person crabby today. Because there's a story behind it, right? No one wakes up and is like, I am so excited to be so crabby today. But it's, I wonder what made that person this way. And then two, what can I do to not make it worse, right? And I can lead, if I lead with that, then it's better for me, it's better for that person. And think of the amount of conflicts that would never happen. Think of how our daily mood would improve every single day. And think of the impact it could have on those strangers.
Well, and
just led with compassion and curiosity.
Yeah, and part of what you're referencing is that maybe prior to that psychological shift for you, there was like, hey, stranger, you were rude to me, now I'm in a bad mood. All of the people who then you came into contact with, who you were different with, rather than this new framework. That when did it shift for you?
I think it probably shifted, to be honest, after a huge life event where my world was just tipped upside down and was like, well, you have nothing now but to look at, rethink, and look at everything differently, right? And if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have survived. And so it was one of those, it was just a really profound, I think, time in my life. Yeah. But like I said, do I remember the day? Do I remember the month? No. But I just remember it making such a profound difference. I was at the drugstore like 3 weeks ago, and holy cannoli was I crabby and just irritable and exhausted. And that definitely came across when the lady was like, no, your prescription is not yet ready, even though it says it is. And I was like, I'm going to spend an hour here. And she came back with just as much attitude, and we were just power struggle. And then it hit me like, okay, Tara, compassion and curiosity. And then I literally just let my guard down, and I said, you know what? I'm so sorry. I'm so crabby. I'm just having a really hard day. And her guard went down right away. And she was like, lady, you're not alone. We got you. And ever since then, now she's my best friend. at the the drugstore.
At the drugstore.
And we have such a different relationship now. I mean, it's bizarre. And it's all because I was willing to be vulnerable, and she accepted me for that.
Yeah.
When I then shared. I shared my feels out loud.
Right.
It was received well, and now I have this bond with a stranger of we just get each other, but it never would have happened if I did not express my feels aloud.
Mm-hmm. Well, you bring up something for me that I would say has probably been me in the last year of recognizing the dialogue that happens internally for me that I don't verbalize, that I don't share. And you mentioned vulnerability. I think that's a huge part of it. Sometimes it's us even just knowing we're doing it.
Absolutely.
And I've recognized how much of a story I'm writing in my head about all of the things, all of the time, including my own emotions, that me recognizing or connecting dots, here's how I'm showing up because of something. Like, here's where it's rooted in.
Yep.
And being willing to state that it does require something of me. And it's had me thinking a lot, probably in the last 6 months, about what is that dialogue that's happening for every one of us all the time on it's just with us. It's our own kind of around the table of all those parts of us. They're all conversing, and they're different feels. They might be some life experiences too, or aspects of our personality, but they're telling us things about our moments and that we maybe don't say anything about. And how I have a responsibility to that, because it does change how I show up in the moments with anybody. And you mentioned it at the drugstore. This has happened a lot lately, but sometimes those are even beliefs about ourselves, or things that maybe we don't want to recognize about how we feel about something.
But what you say, the profound piece of that is that it's one thing to acknowledge it, but you're putting the work into it. And that speaks volume of who you are, where you're like, well, yeah, I'm going to look at the why behind it. I'm going to look at what obstacle is stopping me from getting from here to there. And that's huge. That's really hard, though. And that's one of the things we hope to do on the show is, well, how do we get there, right? Super random note, but I love that you just said it about we are the authors of our own story, right? In our head, the two of us, if they only knew, the dialogue that would go in our mind every single day. We are always thinking and whatever.
Yeah.
I learned that 20-30% of people do not have an internal dialogue in their head. And I learned that and was like, you are joking. Wait, no one else is exhausted with their own thoughts every single day? I thought this was every human thing. Turns out it's not. It's just a Becky, Tara, and other people thing.
Okay, well, if you're listening and it's you, we hear you.
We hear you.
We are with you.
And we are thinking about you right now in our internal dialogue.
Yes.
That was mind-blowing to me. But it also played into whether you do have that constant internal dialogue and you are anticipating the rest of your day and evening in your head right now, or you're someone who's just has the capacity to just be present and not thinking anything else in your mind. It doesn't matter the type of person you are. The fact is that it is scary to express yourself. All of us can do it.
It is scary.
Right? It is scary, but we can all do that. It's just a little more exhausting for the people who are constantly playing things in our head.
Yeah.
Too.
Well, part of what I've really challenged myself with recently, because I enjoy writing, and you know that.
She's a beautiful author.
As listeners, you will hear all about my writing later. But I tell myself that it's okay that you're writing. As long as you acknowledge, Becky, that what you're writing is fiction in your head, that you are not necessarily writing nonfiction. And wow, how sweet it must be to be the 20% of people who don't have an internal dialogue.
Yeah, super jealous. I know we're not supposed to be jealous
miles an hour.
of other humans. I was thinking to myself, just listening to it, I'm like, as she's speaking, she's probably thinking of next week's episode on what is going to be happening. That is how Becky's mind works. But I think what you said is just so profound about as long as I tell myself that what I'm thinking is a work of fiction. That's so important, right? Because whether it's anxiety, negative self-talk, whatever it is, almost all of what we're saying in our mind to ourselves is fiction.
Yeah, well, we're the only ones dialoguing with us. And part of what is so critical about feeling out loud and expressing feels out loud is there's a little bit of a check on our perspective, because we are us. We live with us all of the time, 24 hours a day. And although we have a very good sense, I would say that we are experts on us, sometimes when we're in it with ourselves, we also have only our perspective, and then that's it. That sharing feels out loud
scary.
Doesn't necessarily mean we're looking for somebody to tell us, no, you don't feel that way, which I think every one of us has an experience of being minimized or invalidated, that if we all were in a big circle and talking with each other, we'd all have some sort of shared reality that way. So it isn't that we're looking for that, but sometimes verbalizing it allows us to even get a perspective on it being externalized rather than just us spinning on the emotion and writing a story about that. I'm sure you have something to say about that.
Well, my first thought was the former English teacher in me wanted to interject and be like, now to clarify, everybody, that fiction and nonfiction, fiction means a story that is not based on fact and is not true. Because I'm sure someone out there is going, well, does that mean everything we're thinking is true or false? But I got to let go of that teacher side sometimes. But so to clarify, those thoughts in our minds, they're not real, right? They're made up. They're not based on nonfiction or not based on fact. And it's that piece of so much, and it could be a basic thing to your point of when it goes from a thought to words, it can be so different, right? And a huge impact on how those thoughts become words. And then it's also looking at our delivery of how we are saying them. Because many times it's, oh boy, my thoughts on that did not come across accurately.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's that piece of, which is a whole other thing about communication, but it's that piece of, are these thoughts in my head translating into words accurately? And is it a good representation of my thoughts? And sometimes it's so scary because we don't know how to translate, like we talked about briefly earlier, about how do we translate our thoughts into words when it can make such a profound difference on how we communicate that.
Yeah. So, I'm putting you on the spot here a little bit,
Totally
but
fine.
when you yourself have, I don't really even know what I'm feeling right now. What do you do to help you get some clarity on it?
Well, and interesting you said that, because I do it for myself, and I also do it whether it's my daughter or clients or former students. It's that idea of, one, the beauty is you don't have to have a name for it. Why do we feel like we have to identify? Why
like
not
with
just
the word or with the phrase? Okay.
Like, I am angry. I am mad. Well, what if I don't know how I am? What you do know is what you're feeling inside your body. How is that showing up? Whatever that word is that you can't identify doesn't matter, but how's it showing up in your body? Well, I have this just like ache in my heart, okay? Or I am shaking right now. Or to me, that is just as accurate as saying I'm angry. Because what you're describing is your experience. The emotion is just a word, right?
Yeah.
That feeling is what is going on in your body, right? They always say, I don't know who I learned this from back in the day.
But if we say they, it's totally fine.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Is the difference between an emotion and a feeling. A feeling is our physical response. I'm shaking, I'm whatever. Our emotion is the story we've attached to what's going on in our body.
That's a great way to describe it. I love that. Whoever they is really
thank
smart.
you. I mean, I'm not ever going to take credit for it. So if you just say they,
Yeah.
then it just puts it out there. But that also was a game changer for me. That piece of, okay, what I'm feeling is my heart rate, it's shaking, I'm sweating a little bit, my lips are quivering. And then that emotion is, what's the story behind it?
Yeah, so what I'm hearing you say is you sort of take a body scan. Like a note of, okay, there's something going on for me right now. What is it? And I don't have to necessarily in this moment, I'm going to give myself a permission to not root cause it.
Absolutely.
I don't have to know why or even the what, but I can say in this experience right now, how am I noticing it? And then naming those kind of physical experiences.
Yep. The heart racing, whatever it is. And then to me, that's right? That is more concrete. Where if I just said I'm mad, what does that even mean? Right? So we get frustrated, we can't identify it. But at the same time, if we can describe what's going on in our body, that's so much of an accurate portrayal of what's going on.
Well, and what you're reflecting, I really like that because I often hear in the therapy experience, people equate a feeling with there must be a reason that I feel this way. And we look for the why do I feel this way if I can name
the story.
What I can name.
Yep.
And if it doesn't seem appropriate, well, then I'm not allowed to feel.
Absolutely.
So it's almost like a cause and effect of if I can say, like, well, I hurt because I stubbed my toe, then I'm allowed to hurt.
That validates you.
If I don't know what that root cause is, then the feel I need to tell myself is inaccurate or wrong or needs to just be dismissed. And so what I hear you saying is, like, before you do that, give yourself some space, pause for a minute.
Absolutely.
Don't name a feeling or an emotion in that moment, or don't even necessarily be worried about whether there even is a cause. Just note this right here.
Exactly. Because then we have no expectations for ourselves, right? Then that also eliminates the opportunity to be disappointed or to disappoint someone else. Where if we can just sit in whatever it is, right? And we'll say all the time as friends and coworkers, we'll say, I'll sit with you in that. I'll sit with you in it. And that means whatever that it is, doesn't matter. You don't need a name for it. But I'll be beside you. You're not alone. And so much of expressing ourselves, whether it's, you know what, I'm frustrated or angry. Okay, well, then they know. That's great. Well, if I don't have a word for it, then the key word you used was, it's wrong. There's something wrong with me if I can't identify it. But no, it's not, because you are the expert and you know exactly how what's going on in your body inside. And that's what's most important. Right.
And that, of course, you and I come with a bias, but that feelings are not a thing to be processed so we get rid of them. Absolutely. They're experiences to be highlighted, to be with. Which is a really different approach. And the goal isn't necessarily, which I hear lots, like, well, what's the point of sharing? What's the point of that? It doesn't necessarily make me not feel that way. And really, honestly, I say, like, I don't know that that's what the goal is.
And it isn't. But what you just said goes against what so many people were taught, right? Our society taught us to identify and throw out.
Right.
Well, no, or we look at it like, why not just sit in it? Sit in that sadness. Sit in that anger. Sit in, whatever the feeling is. But what happens then? Well, that's the scary stuff. But it also allows our body to just have a break. Like, okay, I don't have to, be so focused on eliminating that feeling. What if I just sit in it?
Yeah, I've been reading a couple of books recently about this concept of in our really our human experiences, what we all require is companionship. And one way to consider therapists is kind of expert companionship. That what does it mean to be with someone in their struggle and pain? And kind of brings me back to what we were saying at the beginning of the segment, and what would be different about our world if people were with one another as companions in that whatever it is, as you said, kind of maybe we don't have a name or a word around that or words around that at this point, but someone being committed to being in it with us. And it makes me think about, I would love your thoughts on what do we need to do or what could we try, even like right now, for people who are listening, what could we do or try in order to show up as a companion that, because sometimes it is easier for us to externalize and be there for another before we're vulnerable and share ourselves.
Oh, absolutely.
But what could we do?
Well, and there's a couple of things that came to mind right away that kind of connect to like each bit of the thread that we've been weaving today. Of one thing we can do that's tangible is, again, it's that leading with compassion and curiosity of, say someone is super crappy, let's say it's your friend or a partner, and it's that idea of, I say this to my daughter, well, that would be really hard to feel like that, wouldn't it? That'd be a pretty icky way to be when you notice the person's so crappy. That's so different than what a jerk, right? Oh, yeah, that would not be fun to be that crabby every single day. And then it switches to a more compassionate, empathetic response from you. So with that companionship, it's that seeking, the curiosity.
Yeah, it's that curiosity part that
you're coming across, yes, as I see you, your voice is elevated, whatever it is. What got you there today? Right? And that not, oh my gosh, you're a jerk, but instead, how can I help you because I'm seeing you as human, right? Rather than the enemy. And so it's seeking, the questions of what got you here today?
Yeah, one of my thoughts was, as you were talking, I was thinking about maybe one thing is to notice in ourselves how we feel when someone is talking to us. And kind of, because that we can say to ourselves, hey, this makes me feel anxious. I find myself wanting to leap back in with, you know what, it'll be fine.
Or lash out.
Or yes. So if maybe as we're practicing a new way of showing up as a listener, we recognize what someone is saying to us, how that makes us feel. And when you say kind of that body scan part, we can hear or in ourselves by observing like what's happening for us as someone's sharing about themselves. And we always buy ourselves time, as you and I said maybe about a half hour ago. Tell me more.
Yes.
We just have to say that. Pause. Tell me more. And then be cognizant ourselves of what it is we're feeling and how maybe some of the things we share back with people are motivated from our own anxiety in other people's emotions.
And it's one thing I use with parents quite a bit who have a kiddo they're struggling with. I say, if your kiddo is ever late, they know they broke curfew. Please don't yell at your child and say, and you got here an hour late. They know that. That's a fact. That doesn't have to be repeated. But the most important part is, by you being late, here's how I felt. I was terrified that something happened to you. I could not get out of my head that X, Y, or Z happened. It's what's that emotional impact? So it's using that, like putting it into words of, wow, what you're saying right now is so powerful that this is what I'm experiencing inside my body right now.
Well said, girl. We have so many things to talk about here, and I think you and I could talk forever.
I mean, pretty sure we could.
We will be back to address listener questions and talk through what some of you are wondering about emotions. We are going to head to a commercial break right now, but Feels Out Loud will be back in a bit.
You gotta find your people, then you'll find yourself. Express yourself.
We are back again with Feels Out Loud, and this part of the show is where we talk through questions from our listeners, you all. If you have a question related to mental wellness and sharing feelings that you would like us to process through, please email me directly at Becky McNattin at becomingtogethermn.com. Our email address can also be found on our show link as well. We really do want to hear from you and take time every week to wonder together about the topics on people's minds. And Tara, we heard from a listener, what can I do if I don't have anyone to share feelings with? And what would you say to this listener?
Well, and here's the thing. So my first thought was if it is like, well, wait, I don't have anyone to share feelings with. Oh my gosh, but there's so many amazing things you can do, right? Mm-hmm. Is because we can be
felt that way too.
Our teachers ourselves. We can be the student ourselves. And so it's that idea of expressing ourselves in different ways other than speaking, which I know a listener had a question similar to that coming down. And it's kind of a similar thing of, well, what other ways can I do that? Well, there are so many things. There is journaling. There is going of a human to express this with, but go in your back so loudly at the top of your lungs. We'll get every negative feeling or vibe out of your system. Sometimes that is 1,000 times better than grieving frustrations to someone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was thinking as sometimes the most powerful thing is bearing witness to ourselves.
Yes.
That writing is where if you and even wrote "Dear Self," and write yourself a letter of the moment. Mm-hmm. You can write to the exact emotion if you know how you're feeling. Mm-hmm. You can write to the body part that you're noticing feels tense or feels anxious, or you notice you're sweating.
Yes.
That so often we can share emotion with ourselves, and that by itself is validation.
That's a beautiful thing.
And that sometimes externalizing, you mentioned going in the backyard, we can go in a vehicle, we can somewhere where we're by ourselves, even talking out loud to ourselves. Take that internal dialogue that we mentioned in the previous segment and just make it actually verbal. Bring it out loud where you're hearing the words.
And that can have a profound impact.
Yes.
When you hear those words.
Totally. So that kind of brings us to the second question. Listener says only verbal. And what would you say, Tara?
I say absolutely not, my friend. And so here are just some things we do, whether it's in the private practice or at home as just humans. It's that idea of, oh my goodness, that somatic piece or that your body's response and the work you can do with releasing emotions is huge. You can look at it through, yoga is a very, probably I would say the most well-known somatic type thing you can do. But then also looking at things like aromatherapy or color therapy, which is so amazing to research, like the different, what is your aura, those types of things. Music.
Yeah. I mean,
oh my goodness.
Our very practice that you and I both work for, Becoming Together Therapy and Wellness, is an expressive therapies clinic. So much of what you're highlighting is the framework and the modality that the entire practice is rooted in, with people who, myself, I'm a poetry therapist who have background in writing. We have a dance and movement therapist. We have yoga teachers that are also therapists that work with us. Think about that there are therapists who see the clinical work through this lens, and so important that we see expression as way beyond only verbalization with words.
Absolutely.
Well, that brings us to the end of our show, everyone. Thank you for listening this morning, and be sure to join us next week as we continue to explore what it means to live and share mental health together. Most importantly, be kind to yourself. Remember that connection fosters wellness, and your voice, I promise, is one the world around you needs to hear. Share yourself, friends. See you next week.
Try again, some do, some don't, some will, some won't. I wanna feel just a little.